In this lesson, we'll take a look at the layers within RealFlow. Okay, so this layers area is a new area that's found in RealFlow 2012. So really this is a place where we can start to set the visibility and the simulation options, really the exact same options that we've had a chance to take a look at throughout some of our earlier lessons, but it really just allows us to set, instead of these options on a per object basis, we can actually set them on several objects all at once. So just to demonstrate this, I'll start with a blank scene and just maybe create a couple of basic primitive objects so we can actually tell these apart. So I'll start with maybe a circle, or rather a sphere, cylinder, and maybe a plane. Right, that should allow us to see some of the differences here. So essentially what we can do is take any objects or any emitters, anything that we have in our scene that we want to actually maybe change the visibility options on. With these selected, let's first add these to a new layer. So within RealFlow, we can either just make a new blank, empty layer, or we can make a layer that contains the objects that we have selected. So let's go ahead and click on that second option here. We can actually come in and now define an object or a layer name. So maybe layer 01 or whatever descriptive name that you want to type in here. Now within these different menus, we have things like the visibility and the display. So if I were to double click on this and set the visibility to none or no, you can see now these two objects are invisible. We can also set things like the display mode. So on these objects that are on that layer, we can maybe set these to something like a bounding box or wireframe, whatever the type of a look that we want, really. So again, really just pretty much the exact same options that we've had a chance to take a look at up across here, just not necessarily on a per object basis. We can now do this for a collection of objects. Now we also have some of these same options on these little icons up here. So if I were to actually select the layer itself and click on this, we have this little menu that pops out. It is being partially cut off on your screen, but essentially the exact same options that we had through these little pull-down menus. Now, in addition to a visibility layer, we also have a simulation layer in RealFlow. Now, simulation layers, again, these are where we can start to define whether an object is active, cached, or inactive, except, again, instead of defining it on a per object basis, we can do it for several objects all at the same time. So again, I'm going to go ahead and shift select these two objects. With these selected, let's go ahead and make ourselves a new simulation layer with these objects on them. And once again, we can double click and tell an object to maybe be inactive, in which case you can see the wireframe around that object turn sort of a red color. So this would be perfect if we had maybe objects in our scene or maybe particle emitters that we didn't want to be used just right this minute. We could set their status to inactive. Also, maybe if we had cached data that we looked at, similar to our previous lesson, we can come in and set that to cache. You can see once that's been done that these two objects turn sort of this yellowish color within our global links, as well as in our nodes listing, meaning that these options or these objects will no longer simulate. They'll now use entirely cached data. And again, that's something that we looked at in our previous lesson. Now, if at any point in time you're working with some of your different layers and maybe you forget maybe which objects are assigned to which layer, there's a couple of different ways of actually finding that out. Number one, we could actually just simply hover our mouse cursor over a layer, at which point you can see RealFlow pops up this little tooltip where we can see cylinder 01 and sphere 01 are part of this layer. Another thing that we can also do is actually select a layer, and with that selected, we can come in and tell RealFlow to select the members of that layer, at which point you can see that RealFlow will come in and now just select those objects. Now, if we had multiple layers, we can come in and actually start to restack our layers. Really keep in mind, though, that it's really just more of an organizational feature. This really won't have any impact whatsoever on the actual outcomes of your simulation, the actual ordering of your layers. It's, again, really just more for organizational purposes. Now, again, just like what we saw in our visibility layer, if we were to click on these little icons, we have quick icons for active, set cached, set inactive, as well as being able to set the export of data. Now, this is a feature that we'll talk about once we get into our later lessons, so we'll come back to this at a later point in time. So again, within RealFlow, these layers just become a really useful way of being able to come in and break our scenes apart based on object visibility, based on simulation, activity or inactivity. Again, just a really useful way of keeping our scenes organized.